Good afternoon, my name is Gisli. I'm the Chief Technologist for Network and Security at CAE, and I just wanted to run you through some of the things we've been working on for the last few months. So the first thing I kind of want to talk about was to follow on Scott's messaging around managed services. We're seeing a lot of customers that want to do managed services, various reasons, small, lean teams, cutting down on cost, staff retention, all sorts of reasons why people want to do it. But it's also, despite all the effort Cisco is making to simplify, security is still pretty hard. There's a lot of technologies, and there's still a lot of different consoles and different technologies to learn. And to maintain that sort of end-to-end specialization across your entire team for all the different products can be challenging. So we've built this offering where you can pick and choose. You don't have to take all of it. You can outsource some. You can keep some in-house. We can even do co-managed as long as we got good, rules of engagement around how we deal with instance. But effectively, we have these package services for Duo, for firewalls, for SSE, obviously, SSE being a massive piece, and we'll be covering that off in a bit more detail in a minute. Managed ICE, again, I know many of you, I see here in the room, you have ICE, and some of you find it challenging to manage, and upgrades can be particularly hard. And obviously, we're talking about email later, but at the end of the day, it's a lot of products, and all of them need to be looked after. They all need moves-out changes, and all of the older ones that still have appliances or hardware, we still need to patch them. Sometimes that can be hard. What software version should you be on? Is that a direct upgrade? Do you need to do intermediary upgrades? All these kind of complexities. So we've built all of this into our services. We do all of your moves-out changes. We do quarterly software upgrades, and if there's an emergency, patch required due to our software vulnerability, we will do those. Obviously following your change process, but there's no limit on those. So now you've got all these products up and running and they're working, but the challenge is they all generate alerts. And this is where it really gets hard. And how do you take all these alerts and how do you correlate them? Anthony's going to cover that in great detail later on and show you how XDR is one answer to that question. But not everybody wants to do that in-house. So you may not have people out of hours. You don't want to build a 24/7 SOC. Anyone who's looked at the kind of challenges around doing that, you'll understand how many people you need, the level of people, how few of them are in the industry, and how much they cost. So we often put together a package where we do the managed services around the software and the hardware, and then we work with Cisco, who delivers a global 24/7 follow-the-sun SOC. And effectively combining the two, so we look after the products, Cisco look after the events and the logs and the incidents. But then obviously if something happens out of hours that needs to be dealt with, Cisco can come to us and we can action that with pre-approved changes on your behalf. So when there's a P1 happening at 2 a.m. on a Saturday night, well, we can action the output from the Cisco MDR service and the NOC. There's no need to involve you. You can look at it on the Monday morning when you're back. So by combining all of this, we've created what we're calling a SNOC. Bit of a funny term, but it's a security NOC effectively. But this is something we deployed. I think Rupert's with us here today. He's going to speak about his experience. So he's probably our flagship customer in this service. So we look forward to hearing from him. But at the end of the day, all of this, as Rich pointed out, run out of Hamel, our staff in the UK, 24/7, sitting in the NOC. And I would encourage you, if you haven't been to Hamel, come and visit. It's a fantastic site, beautiful office, and great to see the people. All of it fully certified by the SDI Service Desk Institution. Get certified every year, make sure our processes are up to date. And that's effectively the SNOC service. Very excited. If anyone's interested, we can have a conversation afterwards and take a look at that in more detail. I wanted to cover off a little bit around our kind of platform approach. So this is our blueprint, the reference design for a typical site or an office or warehouse or retail. And it kind of covers off all the major things you would want to have, but I'm not going to go through all of it today, but I did want to point out a few things, because we did mention CIA labs. And there's been a lot of incidents lately. Last 10 days, we've seen several major outages. Some seem to have been caused by misconfiguration. Some seem to have been caused by, a malicious incident. But at the end of the day, there's a part of security which is about quality, which is often overlooked because it's maybe not quite as exciting as some of the product things. So the key thing I want to highlight here is that we have Nucleus, which is our in-house developed tool, part of CIA Labs. And this effectively allows us to do change at scale. So if you have an existing network, you need to make a change to thousands of sites or thousands of devices, we can make that change in minutes. But it can also be used for deployment. So it gives you that configuration consistency, which is absolutely critical, making sure that every site or every device is deployed right, first time, every time. And it's 100% consistent. Because as soon as we start allowing human error to creep in, every single one of those represents an attack surface, something that can be exploited. So Nucleus allows us to get things in a state where we're absolutely confident that it was done right. But then obviously time passes and things change. So this is where Assure kicks in. And Assure effectively is a backup solution for the Cisco Networking Cloud, which now supports both Meraki and Catalyst. So it's not just a Meraki thing anymore, it's a full suite of Cisco Wireless and LAN. But it doesn't just do the backup, it can also go and do consistency checking. So if you set out a policy for how your SSIDs should be configured or how your LAN port should be configured, what NTP servers you're using, and all those kind of details, if that is changed on any device, this will discover it and alert you and allow you to change it back. So it's really important that we're using the Assure capabilities to make sure that things are not drifting out of compliance, because every single drift out of compliance represents a security risk. And if you do deploy, as we have seen over the last 10 days or so, a catastrophic change out into the network, it'd be nice if you could just click one button and undo it in 30, 40, 50 seconds, as opposed to days and or possibly a week, as we've seen some of the events that have happened recently. So kind of just want to cover those off. The rest we will kind of be covering off bit by bit throughout the day. And maybe just in light of Rich's mentioning about sustainability, we have WISE Awards, which again, love to have a conversation to you about, but it effectively allows us to turn off access points, switches, devices, IoT, whatever it may be, anything with a UK power socket, effectively we can turn off. But more importantly, we can report on the savings. We know how much energy you save, we know how much CO2 you save. So again, if you need to put these report packs together, you need to understand what you've done. So really, really powerful, well worth having a chat if you haven't seen this already. So if you were at Cisco Live, and I see a few faces that were, you would have seen Cisco Identity Intelligence being announced. Kind of the strapline, why hack in when you can log in? Makes a lot of sense. It's a hell of a lot easier. But at the end of the day, it's a big step for Cisco. This is obviously a whole new area that they haven't been in before. So we're really excited. And also very excited to say that we are the first partner in the UK to have deployed this in our production environment as well as in our lab. So we're actually running this. And the insights are very, very interesting. And I think maybe Rupert will give us a little bit of a flavor of what he's seen, because again, being a CA customer, they are the first customer in the UK that has this. This is going to become something available over the next few weeks, but right now this is, it's very much restricted to CAE. We're the only partner in the UK that's actually using this. Now, there's a few things in the Talos year-end report which is kind of relevant to this, and I wanted to put up here. If you have a phone, the QR code works. You can take a photo, download the report. But 28% of the initial access vectors last year were through an exploit in something that was already existing. So again, this is largely fixable with patching. I know Declan's going to mention the importance of patching and incident response in his part later on, so I'll leave that to him. And obviously phishing, 19%. Anthony's going to cover us some great announcements around that space, so I'll leave that with him. But I wanted to focus on the 23%, which is the compromised credentials of valid accounts. So again, ties back to the why hacking when you can log in. So I've shown some screenshots here of what we're seeing within identity intelligence. I had to be a little bit careful, obviously, because we need to make sure we're not leaking any private information. But you can see here that there's a concept of these checks, and on the right-hand side you can see there's checks. There's about 60 of them, and they cover a number of standards, PCI, NIST, CIS, and a few others. And basically you can get kind of your health score against those checks. Now, some of them are kind of obvious, like never logged in users. Well, that could be a security risk, but it's also potentially a financial thing. You may be able to reduce your Microsoft subscriptions if you have lots of accounts that are never logged into. Some of them are, fairly common, like impossible travel. We've seen that with other vendors for a while, but the one that really caught my eye, which was a bit obscure, was successful logging from an IP address which until now has previously only failed. It's a bit of a mouthful. But basically, if you have someone trying and trying and trying and trying, and all of a sudden they succeed, you probably want to know. Because that's brute force, and someone's actually gotten in. So really, really powerful, some really great use cases you can monitor and check against. But it's effectively a hygiene product. It's there to sit on top of your existing IDPs and just make sure that they're configured in a consistent, secure way. So if you're doing a migration from on-prem AD to Entra ID, for example, well, you want to make sure that all the policies are being ported in a consistent and secure way. This is a great way. It's almost like someone to monitor the admins to make sure that they haven't missed something or something's not slipped through the net. And then we get to my favorite part. How are you going to get your hands on this? Well, Cisco have, according to Scott, now 34 security products. Well, this is not the 35th. That is the best part. They've acquired this capability and integrated it into gaps in their existing products. So if you have Duo, Advantage, or Premier, you will get this as part of your subscription. Nothing new to buy. Doesn't matter whether you bought in a suite, a la carte, or enterprise agreement, you will get this. And this is what we turned on for ourselves and for B&M. Really, really powerful. In a couple of months, according to roadmaps, assuming nothing changes, we will see this in secure access as well, so the SSE solution. And if you think about kind of the power it brings to that is, obviously within SSE, we have the ability to do posture against your device. So if your laptop has antivirus, is a firewall turned on, all the usual posture questions we could ask. But now we could also ask for posture on the user. Is that user safe? Has that account been logging in 6 different countries in the last 6 hours? In which case, maybe we don't want to let them log into SSE, and maybe we want to flag them and report that. So it's really about looking at the identity posture alongside all of the other capabilities already built into secure access. And then finally, it's being brought into XDR effectively as a dedicated ITDR function. So bringing that ability to detect and respond to identity-based threats within the same platform we use for everything else. So really, really powerful. Keyword being free. Right, so moving on to secure access. This is really about working everywhere. If we look at the challenges we've had in the past, we've had probably a fairly poor user experience, using VPNs, trying to use MFA, and then for some other application, you have to use remote desktop. Another one might be Citrix. This one is SSL VPN, that one is AnyConnect VPN, and there's a third-party connection. We have to use a Pulse VPN. It's just hard. There's a lot of things for the end user to know And it brings complexity for them, but it also brings complexity for IT. How do we make sure that we have consistent policies across all these different platforms who don't have feature parity? You might terminate your VPN on a ASA and some other VPNs on an FTD, and they have huge gaps in capability between those two platforms. So it just brings a lot of complexity for IT, for the end user. And really what we want to get to is a scenario where we can work from anywhere, we can work on any device, and more importantly, we can deliver zero trust. And in this context, we're obviously talking about zero trust from user to the application, the workload, wherever that lives, whether it's in a cloud, whether it's in on-prem or in your office, doesn't matter. We need to be able to deliver secure access to it using zero trust. Obviously, if you start looking at other aspects of zero trust, like application to application, well, that's where the multi-cloud defense that Scott mentioned comes in. And again, we have solutions in that space which we can talk to you about. So just to give you a little flavor of what secure access is, Scott mentioned it kind of came out of OpenDNS, which became Umbrella, which now has become this. So the good news is that the vast majority of these are things we've been doing for years. These are tried, tested, stable solution, and there's very little new software in this. It's just been packaged in a different way. The things that are different, like the firewall as a service and VPN as a service, those are using the FTT software. So again, it's using the Snort3 engine, it's using the same software out of the FTD. So again, we're not reinventing the wheel, and we're not having to have a different set of applications and capabilities. All the categories will be familiar to you. If you use the FTD, well, it's the same categories you're going to get in this product. So again, making it as easy as possible for IT in terms of both keeping a consistent policy, but also just doing the work and configuring it, really important. And the only thing that is really new here is the ZTNA. So that was the module that Scott said that, second mouse gets the cheese. That's really that's the thing that makes that happen. And this is a really, really clever piece of software that basically sits as a shin within the client above the routing and VPN stack. So we can redirect any traffic anywhere based on URL, FQDN, or IP address. It doesn't matter, because we're not working at that level. We're redirecting before it hits the network drivers. And for the network people in the room, this is kind of crazy, because you don't have to have routing between the two things that are speaking. We build that tunnel that completely hides it. As long as the local device on both ends can speak, we hide all the routing. So you can have any kind of crazy routing you want, overlapping IP addresses. We even have a customer who is using public addresses on the inside of the network. No problem. That would be a big problem with some solutions. So really, really flexible. And then we've done a few other things. Well, Cisco have done a few other things, which we take advantage of. They have digital experience monitoring, which is, again, fantastic little addition, but again, not new technology. It's Thousand Eyes. And we've probably spoken to you about Thousand Eyes before. It's a digital user experience monitoring platform. It's not a network monitoring platform. It's about, if I were to use this application from the location that the test is being run, what would my experience be like? And that's the difference between, oh yeah, we're at 60% utilization on that link. Well, that means nothing. Is it going to be a good experience or a bad experience when I open up Teams and try and make a call from that particular location? And that's what this does. So this is built in. It monitors all the key kind of common collaboration applications like Teams, Zoom, and WebEx. And then there's a set of 20 other applications that out of the box it just monitors and gives you the stats for. But it's really quite powerful. Now, we've been working with Cisco for almost a year now. I think last June we started working with Cisco. This was only launched in November or October, actually. So we had a good few months where we were working with Cisco, fine-tuning the product. Even yesterday, we had another call with the user experience team where they were showing us the next generation of logging. And they were only mock-ups, but they were, talking us through step by step, and it's really, really exciting what's coming. And these things are coming over the next few months. We're not talking next year. This is going to happen 3 to 3 to 6 weeks is the first iteration, and then the next iteration follows very quickly on. So it all leads to this user experience, really, where when you walk up to the tap and you get your water, you don't care how the plumbing happened. And it should be the same for this. You should use an application, and it's IT and you guys in this room who actually decide, well, this one should connect over ZTNA, this one should connect direct, this one should be proxy, this one should be firewalled. That the user shouldn't need to know about it. It's none of their business. They're there to consume an application. Just like we get water from the tap, they want to use their applications. So it basically comes down to this, where the user authenticates, and that can be Duo, MFA, could be Microsoft, as long as it's SAML compliant, it can be anything. Once they've authenticated, they go to work. And we've determined the policies in the back end to how that actually works. Let me give you a quick example. So in this video, we've just logged in. We can see that the 3 modules are enabled. We got the umbrella for web traffic. We got Zero Trust for applications that support ZTNA. And we have an AnyConnect VPN. Now, that was already connected. User didn't have to do anything. You just log into your machine. This is a certificate-based VPN. So it's all just there. And let me play the video so you can actually see a few different scenarios. So the first one we're going to show is user accessing BBC. Should all work. We then connect to a private application, which is hosted in our lab. And you can see there that's on a private application. I mean, it's not secure because it's just an HTTP app. We then try and go to a website that is blocked with policy. So in this case, gambling. You can see customized block page, and you can see why it's blocked. And then finally, we connect to another IIS server that's, again, hosted in our lab. Now, they all looked and felt the same. The user just opened the browser and connected to what could have been a URL or an IP address. But when we look at the backend, we'll actually see that the BBC side was proxied and DNS protected. When we look at the gambling side, that was actually blocked at DNS because there was no need to proxy. We already knew we wanted to block that domain. The first private application, you can see here, that is connected via VPN, which you can see there in the rule name. It's the HTTPS VPN. So again, this was with a certificate-based VPN. Oh, did I just click a button? Oh, something's gone wrong with the video there. But the last one you would have seen that used ZTNA. But at the end of the day, we were just demonstrating to you that, you saw the end user experience. They just typed into the browser. And then on the back end, you can see that actually we had all these different policies in play, redirecting the traffic to the right place. Now, if you don't have an agent installed on your machine, so let's say you've just got a private machine or anything like that, well, you can still access the same applications, but in this case, just using a browser. You could be at a friend's house, you fire up a Chrome, put in incognito, and you can still connect to your private applications using the web-based access. Now, this today is limited to HTTP and SSH. RDP is coming shortly, and then obviously more applications will be added over time. Which kind of does actually remind me that if you have the agent installed, it's any port, any protocol. So any random old app, we can redirect it. It's not just HTTP and HTTPS. But here you can see that we've created this bespoke URL. Obviously, what you do in the real world is you take this and you put it as a redirect on something a bit more user-friendly. The ability to put in custom URL is coming native into secure access very shortly, but for the time being, we would just do a quick redirect. And the last video is just to show you the experience insights. Again, this is powered by ThousandEyes, but this is built into the product. You're not having to buy another license or install another agent. You can use the native built-in one. You can have, if you already have ThousandEyes installed, it'll use that because it's obviously a slightly more capable agent. But at the end of the day, this is part of the product. And as you can see here, we see a list of our users. We got a map with their locations. You can hover on them, get some stats. Here below, you can see the common SaaS applications that are being monitored for all of your users. You get the high-level view of what they're performing like. But if you click into a specific user, you will actually see a lot more detail. For example, you see CPU, memory, and network. It could be that the user calls you up, but actually the problem is to do with the machine is running on 99% CPU, so it's actually not the network. So it is that whole mean time to innocence really that ThousandEyes gives you, but built into the product. And like I said, for the collaboration applications, this is all built in. There's nothing for you to configure. It'll monitor all of the latency, jitter, and packet loss, which is obviously the thing you care most about with those collaboration apps.